You know, when I go to a social gathering and people say to me, what do you do? And I say, well, I'm a psychologist. And they usually follow up with, oh, do you have a speciality? I say, well, actually I do. I do a lot of work with something called ARFID, Avoidant Restrictive Food Intake Disorder. It's a phobic type aversion to food. Some people will panic in the presence of food. Some people will be terrified of vomiting and gagging. I've even seen chefs, people who know the food is safe and delicious, they can put it in their mouths, they just can't swallow it. So, ARFID. And they follow up with, oh, that's just fussy eating, isn't it? Or poor parenting. No, not really. It's an eating disorder. Okay, these people are civilians. They can be forgiven. What about medical health professionals? Doctors, therapists will go, oh, that's a kind of OCD, isn't it? Or linked to autism. No, not really. Now, you can have OCD and be on the spectrum and have ARFID, but as we know, correlation does not equal causation. Yeah? It's a case of pre-existing theory trying to shape the facts. Even specialist eating disorder units. Countless clients have said to me, I went to my local unit and they said to me, well, you're not dangerously thin to count as anorexia. Come back when you're dangerously thin and we'll treat it as anorexia. I mean, just bonkers. You didn't watch it with anywhere else. They don't have a template understanding anything other than bulimia and anorexia. What about people with ARFID themselves, though? On the forums online that I contribute, I've been attacked many times. People have said to me, you can't cure this. This is a medical condition. You know, vomiting, retching is a real thing. Sure, but on the same forums you'll hear regularly, success story. I ate a grape today. I've always been terrified of grapes, but today I looked at a grape and I thought to myself, what the heck? And I ate it, and it was nice. You're asking me to believe that what the heck is a magical phrase that overrides biology. I don't think so. Well, I've got a 4-year-old. He used to eat everything. And then once he had an operation, his tonsils were out, he was down to 2 foods. Oh, this is just a coincidence, is it? And the genes kicked in. Again, I don't think so. Now, there is something called sensory processing disorder where tastes are very intense. But I've seen 4,000 people with ARFID. And I can tell you that in most cases, it's to do with perception around food. Now, perception controls everything, how we think, act, feel, and behave, including food. And it's perceptions that we can actually change all the time. We change them all the time. And if we change our underlying perception, we change the underlying emotion and the behavior associated with things. Now, whilst vomiting is a real physical reaction, it's still driven by perception. Now, everything happens for an evolutionary reason. Back in the ancient times, if we're all foraging for food in the forest, and I'm eating mushrooms, I like mushrooms, I also know that some are poisonous. So at the first sign of danger, like, oh, I think that's a poisonous one, throwing up would make perfect sense. But it's still guesswork. If my fellow caveman says to me, actually, Felix ate this all the time, I just throw up for nothing. And then on the forums, I hear this again. I gave my 10-year-old his favorite spaghetti bolognese. He licks the plate clean. And I say to him, got to be honest with you, I put some chopped onions in today, expecting the child to go, oh, and I felt fine, fancy that. As soon as the child hears that, projectile vomiting. But you're fine a moment ago, what just happened? So, if we did an experiment, if you give one child spaghetti bolognese with chopped onions and you don't tell him or her, 3 days later, they'll still be fine. You give another child spaghetti bolognese without onions, but you tell him or her there's onions in it, they'll start throwing up. What are you throwing up for? There's no onions. Onions cannot make me throw up. It's the fear I have. I project onto onions or vegetables or seafood that makes me throw up. Yeah? Normal, well-cooked food on its own can't make people throw up. And as soon as the brain realizes, oh, it's not dangerous, just different, it stops throwing up. That's what I help people to do. Now, I've got to be honest, to be fair to these therapists, I believe the same things. This is a weird sensory processing disorder. Well, let me rewind a bit. Many years ago, I was invited to work on a program of extreme phobias, and following that, I was invited to work on something called Freaky Eaters, Series 3. I never actually heard of it, never watched it, but as the crew described selective eating, as it was known back then, and I listened, I didn't have any interfering theory. As I listened, to me, it sounded like a phobia. Now, you can have a phobia about anything, so why not food? You know the saying, if it looks like a duck and walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it's probably a duck. So I treated it as a phobia and it responded well. And then the program went live, and they got calls around the country. Now remember, I'm still a newbie, I'm learning. I'm self-taught. I got a call from a lady from Scotland. I'm not just saying that to ingratiate myself. And she says, look, I don't know if you can help me, but even if I smell eggs, I will retch really loudly, embarrassingly so. Now, probably I'm thinking, I don't think so. I think it's some weird kind of sensory processing issue. But perhaps I can make it 10% better, reduce anticipatory anxiety a bit. So she comes to see me in my clinic. I do my therapy. And at the end of the session, I say to her, did you bring some food? Because I like to test my work. She says, yes. She gets out an egg. I'm looking at it thinking, not that, are you mad? Right? But she's looking at it and she takes a bite and waiting for her to retch, and she doesn't. So I turned around and she's eating it. I'm going, what's that like? She goes, yeah, it's different. It got me thinking, I got it all wrong. It's not 90% sensory processing and 10% fear. It's 90% fear and 10% sensory processing, which the brain can handle. It got me thinking further. If you've ever seen a stage hypnosis show, have you ever seen a person eat a raw onion, thinking it's an apple, drinking vinegar, thinking it's Coca-Cola? Well, doesn't that prove that the brain can take an untasty food and make it seem tasty? Well, the brain can also do the opposite, get a tasty food, make it seem untasty. It's all perception. So, okay, that's hypnosis, you might say. What about cases of non-hypnosis? Good question, I'm glad you told me. Have you ever seen on Netflix Brain Games? It's a great series. It talks about how the brain can endlessly deceive itself across all the senses and modalities. And amongst the many experiments, here's one. You set up a stall with cake, free cake, one labeled $7, one labeled $21. You have people, passers-by, sample it and rate it. And without exception, everyone says the $21 cake tastes more fluffy, more delicious. Great. Except, you probably guessed it, it's the same $7 cake. Now, why are people saying these things? Because we approach it in a loaded way, loaded with expectation. A little story in our head says, well, it's got to be tasty because it's 3 times the price. Yeah? Now, something we all struggle with to greater or lesser degrees, not me, I'm a psychologist, no, is naive realism, the idea that we see reality as it is, as opposed to through strong filters of perception, expectation, and anticipation. Now, fear and anxiety are the strongest drivers of expectation, especially when we're young, when we're children. When we're little, we're new on the planet, we don't really know what's going to harm us or not, so we like to play it safe, especially when it comes to animals or food. 2 things that could poison us, 2 most common phobias in children. So it doesn't take a lot to tip us over the edge. Yeah? We like to play it safe, very conservative, so you know what happens if you give a 2-year-old something new? They go, no, don't want that. Now, if you're a parent, you go, well, they're only 2, you don't mind. No one really cares. As the child grows older, parents progressively won't take no for an answer. And they go, no, I don't want to. Well, why not? And the child has this, I have this feeling, it just doesn't feel safe, so we create a rationale, it's the color or the texture or something, and we believe our own rationale. Here's some of the most common examples. There's lots of them. Color. I can't eat anything green. That's not the color of food, it's the color of grass. Green food, ridiculous. Can't eat green food, except peas. I like peas. Well, you can eat green food. Yeah? I saw another lady in her mid-30s who said, I can't eat mushy food. Crisp rolls, crackers, crisps, can't eat mushy food, I'll throw up. Are you sure about that? Absolutely certain, I'll throw up. Can you please tell me what happens when you eat crisps and you chew them and you add saliva, it becomes mushy? You've only ever eaten mushy food. She says, why didn't my specialist uni tell me that? I've been sitting there for a year. Well, quite, you'd think it would be obvious. Yeah? I can eat fish fingers, and I can eat peas, but if they touch, I can't eat them. Okay, but your stomach doesn't care. Yeah? This is a human construct. So, if we're not aware of our own role in this, we think this is something independent of us, like catching a cough or a cold, not realizing we create it. When we feel unsafe, we create rules, not just about food, about anything, to feel safe. And then we worship the rules, and 20, 30, 40 years later, we think God gave us the rules, and God made us this way. Yeah? So, a little bit about my therapy. As I've said, I've seen 4,000 people. There's a lot of stories. With over 90% success rate in one session, about 20, 30% less for children, depending on their ages. By the way, success is defined as being able to eat food at the end of the session. There's no way you could eat before. People having panic attacks before and throwing up. and that then they're eating it, sometimes liking it. Yeah? I was pleasantly surprised by the success rate, to be honest. I didn't think it would be so high, because I was expecting the sensory processing version to be high. In fact, it's the opposite. The majority is the phobic version, and the minority is the sensory processing. And the phobic version is a kind of food PTSD. It's usually a trauma around food. And traumas can be anything. Colic, gastric reflux, reaction to medication, food sensitivities, taste buds kicking in, adenoids out, tonsils out. Now, do remember, as an adult, if I have a case of food poisoning, it's not a big deal. I've been ill before, there's precedent, I know I'll survive. The last time I got ill, my last meal was spaghetti. I like spaghetti. Within 3 days, I was eating again because I fundamentally trust spaghetti. But as a child, the first time you're ill, you think, oh, what's going on? Am I going to die? It's a lot scarier. Or will that food kill me off next time? Yeah? And once we lose trust with food, we take it out of the category of food into not food, safe food, not food, or even poison, and that's where the problems start. Yeah? Once the brain starts thinking those categories, parents will say, sweetheart, try some fruit salad. Yeah? And by now, to a child, it's like someone saying to me, Felix, try gravel. It's great for fiber. Oh, don't be daft. It's not food. Look, why don't you just lick it? If you don't like it, spit it out. Why would I lick gravel? It doesn't make sense in my brain. Yeah? So the point I want to make is our brain's actually not very good at knowing what's dangerous, what's not. Aside from ARFID, I've seen people with a fear of puppies. These are adults. Puppies, kittens, balloons, buttons. The brain can put completely harmless things on the same level as lions and tigers and sharks, or poison. Yeah? It's all perception of danger, not real danger. The therapy in the beginning was 2.5 hours long. Like every newbie, I was over-preparing, over-stacking the deck. I progressively shaved off more and more until it can be done in under an hour. In clinical, I like to do an hour and a quarter, take it easy. But for demos, I've done under an hour. And by the way, it's not exclusive to ARFID. There's a lot of one-session breakthroughs with binge eating, with bulimia, weight loss, phobias, and a bunch of other conditions, because there's a fundamental underlying pattern behind all of them, which is a perception of danger. You change the perception, everything else falls in place. Yeah? So, in finishing, I'd like to give a few tips for people watching. Number one, if you're a medical professional, please be aware. There's a big difference between fuss eating and ARFID. There's anorexia and there's bulimia. They're both eating disorders, both poles apart, and both need very different treatments, just like fuss eating and ARFID. Yeah? If you're a parent, do not force feed your children, and do not starve them. If you hear this online, oh, my niece, my nephew, give them a weekend with me, I'll sort them out. No, you won't. You sound moronic when you say that. You never heard of anorexia or hunger strikes? People can override hunger for multiple reasons. Yeah? You know what would happen if you did a face-off with a child? You'd lose. Yeah? I just worked with a child who was, the parents were attempting to follow doctor's orders and starving the child for 2 weeks. Finally, they gave up, ignored the orders, and fed him safe food after he was in hospital. I hear that a lot. Yeah? It doesn't work. By the way, please don't judge parents or children with ARFID, because you see all these memes going around. They're very hurtful, with parents already at the end of the tether. And okay, it's true that parents can inadvertently reinforce unhealthy behaviors, which can happen outside of ARFID domain. But in most cases, you hear things like, I've got 4 children, I raise them all equally, 3 anything, 1 is down to a couple of safe foods following the tonsils out, or colic, or you're choking on something. That's the more common version. So I say this, Bill, don't you think desperate parents will have tried everything you could think of? Good cop, bad cop, threats, bribes. Now, by bribes, I mean parents saying, I'll give you $1,000 if you eat that. I'll give you an iPad. I'll give you a car. Teenager bursting into tears because they want that more than anything, and they still can't eat food. So it's not attention seeking. They're desperate to have these things. Yeah? Chefs, as they come and see me. There is nothing original you bring to the table that desperate parents haven't thought about already. Trust me on that. Yeah? Be supportive of your friends with ARFID. Remember, you might be looking forward to your wedding, your picnic, your barbecue, but they'll be dreading it. So take that into account. And finally, if you're a person that has ARFID, and it's probably 10% of you here do, you think it's just fuss eating, you being strange about something, there's no need to suffer anymore. you know this can be done, the technology's out there, it can be done in a session, there's no need for any long drawn out therapy anymore. Thank you.